Hi everyone, welcome to Tales of Dread. If you want to read more scary stories, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. These scary stories are about 3 encounters with demonic dogmen. Last December, my cousin and I rented a small log cabin in upstate New York. We were closer than that. We both grew up. We rented this small cabin with 2 bedrooms for 2 nights, so in a way we were. It was just a trip for the weekend. When we got there right before the holidays, there was a dirty-looking journal on the coffee table in the corner. I didn't think much of it because everything around the place looked old and rough. Anyway, at first I thought it was just a decoration, but when I opened it, my cousin handed me a cold beer and asked me what it was. I shrugged. I don't know, it looks like someone's diary. Maybe it was forgotten by the last person who was here. I got goosebumps all over my body the more I read. I wasn't wrong. Since the date was from last week, it was the last person to be here. I won't say his name because I want to protect his privacy, but his journal says that he saw and heard things in the woods around the wood cabin. It talks about eyes, things outside the window that are watching them, and scratching sounds. It just gets deeper and deeper. The more I read, the more it seems like I'm reading a Stephen King book. What happened? As the book fell, I dropped it on the table. It landed on its cover, showing what looked like dried blood, palm and fingerprints on the back of the person's journal. It looks like blood. I couldn't be sure, though. Then we heard whatever it was moving around on the roof of our cabin. It sounded very heavy, and it shook the walls and all the hanging decorations. I could hear a low growl, but I couldn't tell where it was coming from. It wasn't coming from inside the cabin, though. It came from outside, but it didn't sound too far away. My cousin turned off all the lights and ran up to me. What's happening? I don't know, man. I do know, though, that there is something outside this cabin. My cousin nodded and then pointed up. I need to check to see if the front door is locked. Then he started running toward the front door. I didn't move. I was too frozen and too deep in thought to move. I was trying to figure out what was really going on. Someone left us a creepy-looking old journal that talked about monsters in the woods. Was this just a joke, or was there really something out there? I heard the house when I heard something strange. As my cousin ran back to me, he stopped in front of me about 3 feet away, but he wasn't looking at me. Instead, he was looking past me. His body was shaking, and he dropped his beer, shattering the glass all over the wooden floor. He put his hands up and pointed past my shoulder while mumbling to himself. I turned my head slowly and looked at the kitchen window. At first, it was just pitch black outside because it was late, but as the storm got worse and lightning lit up the sky, it became clear that it was there. Then I saw the same thing my cousin had seen. There was the head of a huge man who looked like a dog. It was smiling and kind of growling, and its snout was pressed against the window, making it foggy. Its large hand was pressed up slightly against the window, as if it were twiddling its claw and scratching the glass with its claw-like nails. We moved slowly out of the kitchen and toward the front door. The keys were still in my pocket. After we got into the hallway, thank God, we saw that the thing on the window had gone away. Go to your car. I told my cousin, now we're leaving. As we ran toward the front door, there was no time to think. The big bang on the roof came at that time. We were now on top of this thing. We didn't know where it was or what it could see from above us or if it was safe to run out to the truck at this point. If it knew we had opened the front door and gone outside, it would jump on our backs. Was it even worth taking the chance, or should we just stay home, call the police, and wait? Only one answer made sense. The answer was to try to get away. We couldn't defend ourselves because we didn't have any weapons with us. This cabin had a lot of glass windows, which is another reason. This thing could have easily broken inside, but I think it's having too much fun right now. We really had no choice but to get to the truck and get out of there as soon as possible. We both pointed to the number 3. We swung the door open and ran as fast as we could to the truck. Luckily, the doors weren't locked because we're pretty far from civilization and I didn't bother to lock anything. We got in the truck, started it up, put it in reverse, and got out of there as fast as we could. Something is out there in the woods at the edge of my property. I've seen it a few times now. When I first saw it, I thought it was just my night vision playing tricks on me, but now I know there's something out there. I always did a quick walk through the farm when I was done with all my tasks. Before I went to bed at night, I would walk around the farm to make sure that everything and every animal was safe and sound. In Alabama, my land is in the northeast corner. I won't say the name of the town because, to be honest, I don't want any visitors, especially those I can't even describe. It was about 7 p.m., the sun had set, and the moon had come up. There were beautiful stars in a clear night sky. I checked on the chickens and of course, they were all there. I looked in on the sheep and the pigs, and then I went to see the horses. Up until I got to the goat section, everything was fine. Then I knew there was something very wrong. I only saw 4 goats, but there were 5. I walked around the wooden fence to see if he might be sleeping in a corner or in the little den I had built. When I looked down, I saw blood all over the dirt and hay on the ground. It was everywhere, and I could follow a path that led me past my wooden fence, and to the edge of my property. I thought, damn those stupid coyotes again. I ran back to my house to get my 2-barreled shotgun. I took it down from the wall mount and took it outside with me. Then, in the distance, I heard the howling. It was hard to tell which way it was coming from, but I ran back to where the other goats were and where the blood was still on the ground. I moved slowly in the direction of the blood trail, which led off my property and into the woods near the edge. I walked quietly, trying not to make any noise, with my flashlight pointed down the barrel. I knew that whatever it was, it couldn't have dragged my goat too far, because all of my goats were full-grown adults and pretty heavy. Still, I went slowly along the dirt path, just in case. As I did, I started to see a trail of footprints. The thing that scared me the most was this. I didn't know what I was really following, when I followed the footprints. They weren't exactly like wolves, but they weren't like people either. I really have no idea what it was. But whatever it was, it got on my nerves and had to die because of that. So I kept going quietly. I was getting pretty far into the woods at this point. This is my land, though, so I know how to get back. I left the porch light on, and if I do say so myself, it's pretty bright because it's one of those new LED lights that can be seen from a couple miles away. It's a huge porch light that I built myself and am very proud of. No more about the light. It had been about 15 to 20 minutes. Now, I am pretty far into the woods. At this point, I had noticed that the blood was a little bit wetter than it had been before. Suddenly, I came across a leg, a goat leg. It was my goat's leg, and it was just lying there, shredded, on top of the hay grass. As the blood went deeper, goosebumps started to appear all over my body. First of all, why would this piece of leg be left behind? They don't leave anything for their animals out here that are hungry. I made sure my shotgun was ready, and then I moved on. Now, I couldn't see my light from the porch of my house. Then, out of nowhere, I heard something. It seemed to be close. It sounded like branches or twigs were breaking off to my left. I used the flashlight in my gun to look around. It was just a bunch of moving branches. I turned around all the way around. I pointed my gun straight up. I looked everywhere, but I couldn't find anything. After taking a few more steps, I let my eyes get used to the dark. That's when I saw the eye's reflection. I could see this thing quickly chomping down on something with its teeth and fingers. As I got a closer look, I saw that this thing sort of looked like a man and sort of looked like a dog. It was a lot bigger than me, hunched over, and had a dark black face like a dog. It had sharp claws that looked more like those of a human. It was tearing my coat. No, this thing was tearing my coat to pieces. The watch was disgusting, but I didn't want to make a sound and give away my location. Luckily, I had turned off my flashlight, and I was literally shaking in my boots after this thing, which had been eating my pet for what seemed like hours, had finished. It put its nose up to the sky and began to smell the air. Oh God! I think it could smell me, because as soon as I thought that, the creature turned and looked right at me. The thing let go of my goat, and it started running straight toward me. I was very, very scared. I couldn't do anything but raise my gun, close my eyes, and pull the trigger. I heard a loud scream, but the creature was gone when I opened my eyes. No one could see it at all. I turned around and ran back as fast as I could. Direction is how I got back to my house. I was very, very scared. I didn't bother reloading my gun at all. I was still holding it, but at this point I was running full speed. I ran and ran. I can't even describe how long it seemed to take. I was really, really scared. Then the house came back. Whatever it wasn't dead, it was still very much alive. How far away was it? That was the question. I could hear something far away, but I couldn't make out what it was. I knew it was that thing, but I couldn't tell if it was walking, galloping, or just playing with me. I had no idea. I couldn't think straight at this point. I got back to my house in the end. I ran inside, locked the doors, and turned off all the lights. I got down on my knees and crept into the lower window with the blinds. I looked out the window and saw nothing. It didn't look like whatever I had shot had followed me back home. I let out a sigh of relief, and just as I did, I heard a loud banging on my wooden front door. I got up slowly from my knees and leaned my shoulder against the wall. I walked slowly to the front door and looked at the people outside. Not a single person was there. How could anyone even be there? Just then, I walked in. A couple minutes ago. As my adrenaline started to kick in, I reloaded my shotgun, unlocked the latch, and slowly opened the door. I could handle anything. At this point, I pulled out my shotgun and walked out onto the porch, but there was nothing there and no one was there. I slowly lowered my head and looked to see what was near my boots on the front porch. It was my goat's head. I live near Anchorage, but not in it. Alaska? I have lived here for 10 years. I love it so much out here. I live out in the woods. The next person to me is a long way away. I made my cabin on my own. I had some help, but it's still my work. I own the land. I don't have to worry about all the rules and regulations, mumbo jumbo, and other nonsense that you do back in California. Anyway, getting back to the point, if you want a beautiful place. I mean, when you wake up and look outside, you see the wild, the mountains in the winter, and snow that never stops falling. That's the only bad thing I can say about Alaska's landscape. When winter comes, it comes with a vengeance. The weather is very different from the weather in other states. I think the only people who are kind of used to it are probably Canadians and Russians, who aren't too far away either. Northern Kansas is where I grew up. My family and I grew up on a farm. So I know what you mean about the cold and raising animals on your own, especially if you need to do it to stay alive. But the beast that lives near me in the woods was something I never learned about or saw in my life. The thing with the red glowing eyes that always stares at me at night. It has never tried to hurt me. It just stalks me like some sort of prey. It keeps going around and around my property. Mind you, it looked like it was thinking about what to do next, and when this beast doesn't get too close, but just close enough that you can see it with your blind eye, it looks very big, dark, and muscular, and it might even have hair. It looks a lot like a wolf, but I can't be sure because I only see it at night. When it stands up, it looks like a man hunched over. I'd say it's at least 6 to 7 feet high. But at the same time, it's hard to tell how far away something is at night. It will sometimes just stand there near some nearby trees and slap the bark hard, like it wants me to come closer. It seems to be trying to get my attention, and by golly, I do pay attention to it. There are nights when I walk around my property and see it here and there a lot. But, as I said before, it's never been attacked. It's almost as if it's just testing the waters or getting to know its enemy by not being attacked. Some mornings, I've found the remains of dead rodents left on the porch outside my door. I'm not sure what's going on. It's that animal that put them there. I don't know why it does that. It could be a sign of friendship or warning. I don't leave it on my porch either way. Every night, I clean up the blood and put all the pieces of meat, blood, fat, and fur into a trash bag and put it in my trash can. When I wake up in the morning, the bag is always gone. I've called a few people and done some private research online. I even went to the local library to see if there was any history, news or anything else that could help me understand what I keep seeing in the woods. I've even spoke to my neighbors. When I talk about how this thing looks, nobody seems to want to talk. It almost seems to scare people into acting in a certain way. I thought at first that they were just ignoring me. But the more I told them what was going on, the more it seemed like they were trying to hide or avoid me. It seems like everyone knew but me. I randomly talked to a couple of teenagers at a grocery store the other day. I don't know how this turned into a conversation, but it did, and they told me that their grandparents had seen what I was telling them about. People thought it was just an old story. But now I know it's true. Legend says that this creature leaves those things on your porch as gifts or gestures. Don't worry, it will never happen. But if you leave something else on your porch in exchange, the animal will leave. And, according to their legend, if you keep taking their gestures and never give one of your own in return, the beast will eventually get angry, get closer, and attack you or anything else on your property. For the past 7 days, I've been leaving big pieces of steak and prime rib. I know that it's expensive, but I thought it was worth it. In the end, my gifts were still on the porch on the 8th night. So I think the creature is now interested in someone else. At least, I hope that's the case.